I'm giving away not one, but 2 Swimnerd pace clocks on the first night of US Olympic trials. Find the link in the show notes to enter. Looking to host your first swim meet or replacing an old timing system? Run a swim meet with ease from your laptop using Superior Swim Timing. You can use Superior Swim Timing with your existing equipment, or they can provide you with a complete timing solution, including deck harnesses, buttons, and starter. SST is fully compatible with High-Tech and Team Unify, as well as Colorado, Daktronics, and Amiga touchpads. Go to superiorswimtiming.com to learn more, and be sure to tell them I sent you. All right, Libby Trickett, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. It's gosh, I mean, swimming feels like a million years ago. But what was the last team you were on?
The last team was 2006 Com Games in Melbourne with you.
Yes, exactly. That far out. I can't even do the math. Is that like 15 years ago? That's nuts.
It is nuts. It's crazy. So yeah, it's been a while, but no, it's good to see you fresh off the massage table too.
Yes, yeah. I'm still pretending that I'm an athlete. I'm trying to yes, I'm trying to recapture my youth and pretend that I'm an athlete, because I'm actually training for a half marathon at the moment. So
Oh, really?
yes, which is an interesting challenge for any swimmer, I think, because we're not really made for land.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's a bit challenging, but that's okay. That's why I'm getting massages.
Well, listen, there's nothing wrong with massages. Are you judgmental now? Like, do you judge them based on, your previous massages you used to get from some of the best massage therapists in the world?
Yes, I thought I was the only one who did that. Good to know that I'm not the only one who does that. But yeah, no, so I have gone through a few massage therapists post swimming, because you kind of feel like you can't go to your old massage therapist, and a few have moved on and things like that. But I found one of the therapists that I see now, it works for the Australian team, and so I've kind of had to go back to that sort of level that I'm comfortable with.
Oh, very nice. Now, listen, last time I saw you was actually in the car. I was watching your Instagram yesterday, and there was a little video of you with the kids screaming in the background. It was fantastic.
Yes.
How many kids you got now?
Different now. I've got 3. So I got 3 girls. They're 5, 3, and 1. And it's amazing. It's the best thing I've ever done, but also, can I swear on your podcast? Is that acceptable?
Can you do what? Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, cool. It's the fucking hardest thing that I've ever done. They're like, oh gosh. I really struggle to kind of comprehend how you can go from just this crazy burst of love for these little beings that you created to wanting to put them in the bin. That pendulum swing that I experience almost daily is just remarkable to me. And they're the best humans that I've ever met, but also the worst. So
Yeah, there's no handbook either. It's not like someone says, "You just do this, and this is like just follow these," and like you just one day you're just hit with the reality that there's these monsters running around the house. You're like, "What the fuck is going on here? This is madness."
Totally. And like I think as well, coming from swimming where everything's so structured, everything's so routine, everything's just you're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Um yeah, to having these little humans who are just so reliant on you, and you have to create the structure, you have to create the boundaries, you have to do all of this sort of extra thinking, and that's certainly been challenging. But yeah, I find when the stars align, they can be real turd bags.
What are the ages?
5, 3, and 1.
Oh, 5, 3, and 1. Wow. Yeah, you went in a row, bang, bang, bang. You didn't leave yourself a lot of room there.
No, we had 3 basically under 4, so it was pretty hectic. But I feel like for the long term it will be good. But yeah, at the time and still now, occasionally it's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks for the time. I appreciate it. I wanted to chat about your career. I've been going through this little these 2 Olympic things here I got in the background. I got the Sydney from 2000. So I've been going through my teammates there. And then you're in this one from 2004, Athens Olympic, trying to go through all my teammates and just tell their stories. I mean, we had great teams back then and some incredible athletes. And so it's been too long. So I apologize. I should have got you on the podcast earlier, but I'm glad we're doing it now. So thanks a lot.
No, absolutely. I think it's awesome that you're able to tell everyone's stories, because I don't know if you find this, but it's quite nostalgic, and it's really special to kind of reflect on what we did. It feels like a lifetime ago, but we did that. It was really cool.
Well, listen, you did a lot. And I'll admit, I had no idea until about 30 minutes ago when I was going through your Wikipedia, actually, and looking at all the medals you won. I had no idea you won the 100 butterfly in Beijing. No fucking idea.
Isn't that hilarious? I feel like nobody really remembers that. I feel like they know that I won a gold medal, but everyone just assumes it was in the freestyle.
Right, yeah.
Because I was more well known to be a freestyler, but yeah, I won the world championships in the butterfly and the in Beijing as well. So I feel like I went all right in butterfly.
You did. I mean, I was like, wow, she actually won the Olympics in that event. That's fantastic. I mean, I was clueless. Beijing, I was off, coaching at that stage, so I wasn't watching. I was watching my athletes, but didn't pay too much attention to what else was going on. But fantastic swim, obviously. Congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's like I said, it feels like a lifetime ago, or even like a different person. I don't know if you feel like that about your swimming career, but for me, I don't know. Like, I know I did it. I know consciously that that was something that I did achieve, but it also does feel like a different person as well.
Yeah, I think you go through stages in life for sure. Like when I look back on my life now, I'm like, okay, it's hard to relate to that person, but I have some certain memories. And then this stage of my life, I have certain memories. And even as a professional athlete, I don't remember everything. And then these pictures in the background sometimes help. And then these conversations help. But, even when I'm talking to some of my former teammates, they'll bring up stories. And I'm like, how did you remember that? I have no idea. But there are certain things that I remember about our time together. And, we didn't have too much overlap. You were from Queensland, I was from New South Wales, and I was a lot older. I was male, you were female. But in terms of the trips we went on, we did go on some trips. And there was also a time where I was part of your group. I think for 2004 Olympics, I was part of Stephan's group, certainly in that period of time. Maybe even 2005 at the Montreal World Championships. I think I may have even been there as well. But we had some overlap, and I got to watch you kind of in the build up to some of your epic performances. And one of the things that really impressed me about you was Actually, I just watched a video where you kind of talked about 5 things that were really important to you. And you said the first one was listen to your coach. And I always found that you did a great job of that. Like you
Thank you.
You really believed in what Stephan was doing at the time and really paid attention to what he was asking you to do.
Yeah, I think you want to work with good people, right? And I know that as an athlete, one of my skill sets was being very coachable. I think there are athletes who are very coachable and want to do well in that respect. So, Stephan would set me, a session, and I would do it to the best of my ability and try and go even further than what he kind of asked for. And that was something that for me, I really prided myself on. I really wanted to impress him, for lack of a better word. But that was something that made me a great athlete, I think. And so, I feel like if you're not working with a coach who you believe in and you trust, then I don't think you're going to get the best out of yourself as an athlete.
Well, it was a really interesting period for sprinting in Australia, and especially for female sprinting, because we had some of the greatest sprinters in the world right there in a very small vicinity, training close to each other, training with separate coaches. But especially, a couple that I can think of is Jodie Henry was close to you, training with you, near you, Alice Mills, Alice Tate, Alice Mills at the time were part of Shannon Rowlandson's group, and so you had. To me, it was always like looking from the outside in. I was always like, oh, there's Stephan's group and there's Shannon's group, and you had 2 different types of groups, but you were the best in the world at the one time. It was really a crazy period of time for Australian sprinting on the female side of it. It was just incredible, right?
Yeah, I always say that I was the athlete that I was. Obviously, Stephan was the main player in that, but probably just as importantly, we had the best girls in the world in my events. So I remember in 2005, leading into the World Championships at the trials, I actually came third at the World Championship trials to Alice and Jodie in that event. And because I was third, I obviously didn't get selected for the team in that individual event for the 100 freestyle, but I was actually third in the world at that stage. And interestingly, then Jodie went on to win the World Championships in Montreal, and then I got selected for the 4x1 medley relay spot. So it was like this crazy period of time where we just were sort of toing and froing. The 2006 Commonwealth Games, fortunately, we had the 3 best girls in the world, and we got to race each other because they have the sort of 3-person rule, representative of your country. So that was really, it was the best. And, the same goes for the butterfly as well. I had Jessica Schipper, where we were tussling for that first and second position in the 100 butterfly for so many years. In 2005, she got first in the 100 fly. I got second. She won the Commonwealth Games. Then I won the World Championships in 2007. And fortunately, I was able to win, as we mentioned, the 100 fly in Beijing. But, that's the reason that I was the athlete that I was to make the Australian team. I had to be one of the best in the world. So that was a pretty awesome, confidence boost to make the Australian team and go, I'm going to be one of the best in the world. But also to be on the Australian team, I have to train my ass off to try and just make the team. So it was an interesting dynamic, super competitive, but something that I am absolutely grateful for, to have had that experience, for sure.
What was the distance in terms of how far away you guys were training from each other? Where were you specifically set up at the time?
So it's sort of between 2002 to 2000 and I want to say 7. I was at the Valley Pool in Brisbane, Fortitude Valley Pool. And then we moved over to Chandler Aquatic Centre. I think it's the Brisbane Aquatic Centre now. And Jodie and Alice were at Chandler. And then they moved to Canberra, actually, before the 2008 Olympics.
Right.
Yeah, it's
But for a big period of time, how far was the distance between, you're waking up in the morning to go to practice and train to be better than the person that's training down the road from you, right?
Yeah, 5-10 kilometers. It wasn't far at all. It's it's an interesting it's interesting to put it like that, actually, because not only were we all Australians, but we were all Brisbane athletes as well. So I remember the 4x1 medley relay was all Queenslanders. I think all Brisbane athletes. So I mean, Australia has such a proud history. I mean, this. It's one of those incredible countries that we just absolutely hit above our average for what we should be, competing across the world, and we're able to do incredible things, and hopefully that continues. It's obviously become much more competitive, I think, across the sport as a whole. Especially with all the European countries coming through, a lot of the Asian countries being super competitive. The US is still exceptional on every level, but yeah, we still managed to really kind of be the underdog, but continue to have these incredible performances and have Olympic champions regularly.
It seems to be, it's a lot easier to get out of bed in the morning when you know that your main competitor on the world stage is just 5K down the road, getting up at the same time and working just like you. Did you have those moments where you were in bed and thinking of maybe Jodie or Alice down the road and be like, they're getting out of bed right now, I got to get out of bed?
You know what? I was much more self-focused. That might be selfish. I don't know what the word is, but I wanted to be the best that I could be. And so the thing that really motivated me was to do better than I had done. And so, yes, obviously having those girls there and knowing that I had to beat them in order to make the Australian team was vital. But I know that if I was to do my best, I know that if I was going to do a personal best time, I was going to make it really bloody hard for those girls to beat me. So that was the primary focus for me. I actually had goals that I wrote down and put up on my bedroom wall that I would look at as I was going to bed every night, that I would look at when I was getting up in the morning to keep me focused, because I think swimming can be such a difficult sport. It's so repetitive. You train so much for such little competition. You train, hours and hours every single day for, the opportunity to swim for 52 seconds. And, if you put that in the Olympic perspective, you swim, 4 years to have an opportunity of 52 seconds to win an Olympic gold medal. Like it's beyond crazy how much you have to train. So you have to constantly remind yourself of what you're working towards and what your goals are. And I know that I'm the athlete that I was because I had some of the best girls in the world just in Australia, but I also knew that if I wanted to beat them, I had to do better than I had done in the past as well.
Now, your first taste of kind of the international scene was at Barcelona in 2003. Is that right? How old were you
Barcelona. There? I was 18.
Right.
My first Australian team. I went to the Jewel in the Pool earlier in that year, but Barcelona was such a good experience. It was challenging. I was actually quite sick there. I had bronchitis, and it was a good challenge because I had to learn to adapt to those sorts of obstacles that pop up during competition. Like, not everything's going to go perfectly for you, and it allowed me to actually develop a couple of things in terms of like power phrases. I don't know, did you use power phrases at all Hawke?
I think, later in my career, and certainly as a coach, I started to use some of those things to kind of, positive reinforcement power phrases for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so for me, it was such a good kind of tool to use, because I was able to then just focus on what I needed to do, because I was the type of athlete who would get caught up in all of the what ifs. So, what if this happened? What if that happened? What if I win? What if I lose? What if I do a PB? What if I don't? Who am I letting down? And I found that particularly during Barcelona when I was sick, that it was very easy to go into those kinds of thoughts and spirals, I guess. And
Mm.
so with Stephan, we developed this power phrase, which was, I'm strong, I'm fit, I'm healthy, therefore I'm fast. And basically from the moment I got to the training venue to warm up, I had that on repeat in my brain. So it sort of didn't allow for space to go into random unhelpful thoughts.
Right. Yeah, I did notice that too. That Stephan would do a good job of managing you. He was always there. He was always in tune with what you were doing. He would never just let you wander off and drift off. It was kind of like this partnership for sure, where you trusted him, and he was kind of guiding you as well. And it seemed like a really good partnership in that sense for sure.
Yeah, he was great. He was exactly what I needed. He was super analytical.
Right.
He's like, I think still one of the best technical coaches in the world. He has such an eye for, all sorts of technique, but, specifically for me, freestyle and butterfly. And that was great, because that's the stuff that I really loved as well. But he was able to create programs that obviously developed me physically to get the best out of myself, because my front end speed was great, but maybe my back end speed wasn't so good. And so that's something that we worked on together, and he was really excellent at that. He didn't pull any punches. He could be incredibly direct in how he said things, which I think in hindsight is something that I probably could have done with a bit more fluff. Just a bit more fluff, like to go, you're doing a good job, well done, because that's positive affirmation is something that I still crave as an adult. So, but at the same time, he had this intensity that I really responded well to. And the way that he delivered those messages, I think for the most part, was exactly what I needed at that time, especially at that age. I think that we did get into some tussles, and he would agree, as I got older, because I wanted to have more input. And he struggled, I think, letting go of that kind of control a little bit. I mean, that's from my perspective. He may
Right.
have a different take on all of that, but I think that's something that I sort of can reflect on now. But at the time, between the ages of 18 to 23, he was exactly what I needed in a coach to get the best out of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems that way. Listen, I had Alice on, and she talked about some of the things that Shannon was doing with them, and she talked about some reverse periodization where they would kind of flip the season on its head and start with short, fast work early on, and then build into other aspects. And if people are interested, they can go back and listen to that podcast. But in terms of Stephan's theory for you and coaching you, what was it? How did you build your season?
Gosh, you are asking a question that I have not thought about. Maybe I'm trying to block it out. I don't know. It's yeah. I think we did a fairly standard sort of progression throughout the season. We definitely went through a distance phase, which for a sprinter is probably not considered a distance phase compared to some distance swimmers. But
What did you get up
we
to per session, you think?
I think the most I ever did was like a 70K week, which again, for like most Most distance it was just like, what? That's like a normal week for us.
Oh, but 70 K is a lot of Ks, though. It's still a lot of.
Well, for 52 seconds, come on, like.
Yeah. We really need to do 70 K for 52 seconds.
Do we really? I feel like we don't. Anyway, that's another discussion.
Figured that out now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so we did definitely go through sort of a 3-week distance phase throughout the season, but it was mostly a very structured, very routine week that we just kind of little bits and pieces changed. So, Monday morning was anaerobic 2100s after a 5K run. Then Monday afternoon was heart rate. Then Tuesday morning was kick and pull sprint. Tuesday afternoon was quality. Wednesday morning off. Wednesday afternoon aerobic recovery, mostly aerobic though. It's really hard. Thursday morning kick and pull sprint. Thursday afternoon heart rate. Friday morning recovery. Friday afternoon aerobic. Saturday morning quality and gym. So we really kept to that structure week in and week out. I mean, I can obviously remember that.
Yeah, I was going to say, for someone that can't remember very well, you just nailed that one.
Yeah. So, we did the same thing sort of week in and week out, but the structure and the distance changed within that. Yeah.
Do you remember any sets that you did?
Yeah.
Right.
Lactate removal was probably my most hated set ever.
What was that exactly?
So that was usually on a Tuesday afternoon. We would do that, and it would be like, depending on the period of time. So if it was a distance phase, it would be a 50 sprint, but usually for the sprinters in the group, we would do a 35 dive and then a 25 push sprint, max effort, and then a 50 kind of 50 plus, I reckon, 6 or 7, so with stroke count, and then we'd do a 200 at threshold, and then we'd do the same structure, but the 200 would be at like A1, or no, sorry, A2 it usually was, and we'd do that whole set like 3 to 4 times through, and by the end of it, it just was disgusting. Like, it says lactate removal, but I really feel like it was just lactate buildup. Yeah.
So awesome. So, all right, lactate removal. Now, what was your favorite thing to do in the training pool?
Oh, good question. I think I really quite enjoyed kick and pull sprint quality sets on the Tuesday and Thursday mornings.
Right.
I actually found, I mean, I love doing pull sets. That was kind of my really, I feel like that was one of my strengths, was the pull sets for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But I actually feel like I got a lot out of doing the kick sets, because that was definitely my weakness. And I could really see a great progression throughout my training throughout my training. I really feel like that was something that really improved rapidly with my time with Stephan. And so that was kind of really, it's nice to get that feedback, right? Like where you really see significant improvements, because you don't really get that as an adult athlete as you're getting older. When you're a kid, you drop 5 seconds and it's like, woohoo, that was amazing. I have no idea how I dropped that. Whereas, as an adult, you're just looking for those little incremental things to improve on. And so I really saw big gains in my kick strength and fitness and speed. Right. And that was really nice to kind of get that feedback.
Well, that was one of the things about you. You're not the tallest woman. How tall are you?
I'm 167 centimeters. I don't know what that is in, feet, but yeah, 167 centimeters I am.
Yeah, you weren't the tallest, but you were certainly one of the strongest. I mean, you were powerful in the water, and you just mentioned that you like pull sets. I imagine that you were pretty strong in the gym too. But in terms of just your physique, you were comfortable being a strong woman?
Yeah. Well, look, you know, when you're growing up, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to manage, you know, 15, 16, and you have more muscles than most of the boys that you're hanging out with at school and things like that. It's, you know, I remember there was a group of boys that we were hanging out with through school who, you know, weren't the sportiest kind of guys. And I remember being called a butch bitch by one of them.
Mm.
And, you know, when you're 15 and 16 and you're trying to find your place in the world and, you know, you're not the best at anything yet and kind of don't have an excuse to be super fit and strong, that was pretty confronting. But, you know, I think I really felt strongly that my body was my vehicle to achieve something. And that particularly became apparent when I was, you know, making Australian teams and I was making finals and I was winning medals and eventually breaking world records and things like that. That for me was something that made me feel really powerful. And to this day, you know, I am nowhere near as strong as I once was, but I still would be considered probably a muscular woman. But
Yeah.
that makes me feel good. That makes me feel powerful and strong. And it's just a different perspective. And I think, you know, out in the real world, it's sometimes hard to feel comfortable in that sort of body. But when you're amongst female athletes, I mean, it's best. Like, I think female athletes to me are just incredible. And they're such a source of inspiration for me. And so, yeah, it's something that you get more comfortable with over time. But when you're in it, when you are a female athlete and you're in it and you're trying to find those 1%ers, it can be difficult to sort of feel in love with your body. It's much more of a sort of vehicle brain type relationship. It's like, this is how I'm going to achieve my dreams. So yeah, it does take some amount of perspective as you get older to recognize what you were able to do and be really proud of that.
Yeah, I imagine, you know, as you're getting faster and then getting on the podium at Olympics and World Championships, I mean, I imagine when you look in the mirror then you're pretty happy with what you see, you know, like I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm fast. That's confidence building, I guess, at that time, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I would say that I was very much a person, and to be honest, one of the reasons I was able to achieve what I did was it wasn't ever enough. And that's a really terrible, detrimental way of looking at life post sport. But I think that's one of the reasons that I was able to be one of the best, because I was constantly striving to be better.
Mm.
So I can't say that I looked in the mirror and went, yes, I am in peak physical condition. I now know that I was in peak physical condition. 3 babies and 8 years retired, for sure, know that I was in peak physical condition back then. But at the time, you know, you're constantly looking for less skin folds. You're looking for more weight in the gym. You're looking for, you know, better fitness, better back end speed, better front end speed, better turn starts, better power. Like you constantly needing to be better. And so I can't say that, yeah, I would look in the mirror and be like, yes, I'm ready to go. It was a feeling. I definitely felt like I was ready to go at certain times in my career, not all the time, but at some points. But, you know, I definitely did allow myself moments. I remember in 2007 at the World Championships, I won the 50 freestyle there. And I think it was Marlene Beltos and Therese Alshamar on second and third podiums. And they were taller than me on the lower podiums than I was on number one. And I felt really good about that. I felt like I was doing it for the short girls of the world. And, you know, that I think the progression of seeing taller and taller sprinters has continued. Obviously, Kate Campbell came through, and she's, you know, an incredible athlete, amazingly long levers. Like, I was so jealous of the levers that these women have. There's such long arms, such long legs. But then I tried to make the most of what my skill set was, which was, you know, if I'm smaller, I'm going to turn faster. I'm going to get off that block faster. You know, be able to drive through the water and be strong for what I was carrying through the water. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of way to look at it, but certainly it does take time to sort of recognize how fit and strong I was.
Yeah, one of the other things that I saw in the video that I watched earlier was you talking about every rep, and one of the things that I tried to instill in my sprinters when I became a coach is this idea of like every rep counts. You know, if I ask you to do 10 rounds of something or 10 reps of something, I want all 10 to be maximum effort if we're sprinting, right? And I think that's where a lot of sprinters take a while to figure that out, of like, look, every rep counts. It's not good enough to go 4 out of 10 reps or 6 out of 10 reps. You seem to be somebody who would deliver 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 every time coach would ask you to go. So is that something that you caught on to pretty quickly? Did you at least hear the question that I left you with?
Yes. So no, I can't remember it now. What was the question?
So the question was basically every rep. You've got to give every rep. So just give me your mentality, and like, when did you pick up on the fact that like every rep counts?
I think I probably it was a progression, I think, for me. So when I was first swimming, I actually was such a bludger. I would constantly miss laps. I would constantly make excuses to get out of the pool. I would, you know, go to the toilet, in inverted commas, and, you know, have a shower for 15 minutes. I would put fins on if I could. And it took me a really long time to make the connection between, if I worked hard in the training pool, that I got to race faster. And for me, racing was everything. I wanted to touch that wall first. I wanted to do personal best time by as much as I possibly could. And I think once I made that connection, probably when I was about 15, I think, that I could make that impact when it came to racing, that was like a light bulb that went off for me. And I was able to, not immediately, but slowly start to just progress my swimming. So when I first started to sort of make that connection, I didn't try and do any more sessions. I was only doing probably 3 or 4 sessions at that stage, but I would just actually do the session that I was there for. And I started to see improvement, which was amazing. And then, you know, I slowly started to add a couple of sessions. And then I made my first Australian junior team, which again just reinforced that idea that if you work hard, the results do come. And so when at the end of 2002, after making my Australian junior team, I decided that I needed to join a new squad that hadn't had this preconceived idea of who I was as a trainer, because everyone just assumed that I was a bludger, which, you know, because I was absolutely a bludger. So I needed to have a fresh start. I needed someone to make me take responsibility for my swimming, which, you know, Stephan was there to demand that I, you know, started doing at first only 8 sessions a week, but, you know, very quickly built up to 10 sessions a week. And then, so I think the first part was having Stephan make me take responsibility for my swimming, but I took that first step. I made the call to change squads. And then I was able to recognize that every rep, every set, every meter counts when it comes to getting the best out of yourself. And that was a really natural kind of progression for me. And, you know, something that I definitely became obsessive over, you know, even at in the 200-meter swim down at the end of our you know, swim sessions, I would try to do perfect technique, because I thought that if I can do perfect technique at the very end of every single session, that is going to get me the edge over my other competitors, because I in my head decided that that's not what they were going to be able to do, and that made me feel confident in being able to compete and ultimately try and beat them.
Well, listen, it's a differentiating factor between being good and being great, and everything you just touched on there is so. It's all the little details that I tried to instill into my athletes as a coach, and maybe it was through observations of spending time with you and watching you and some other great athletes that we had on the team. It was an easy transition for me to be a coach, because it was like, I've seen these people work. I've seen the way that they're great. I've seen how they become world champions. And so when an athlete had that light bulb switch for me, where they went from where you were early to where you were as one of the top athletes in the world, I've seen that transition too in athletes. And athletes are always asking, like, how do I get to the next level? How do I get to the next level? And it's through little details like that of just doing everything right and finishing with perfect technique at the end of practice, instead of being sloppy and lazy. And all those little details matter, right?
I can't agree more. Like, I think that's the thing that makes the difference, and the willingness to do that.
Yep.
And to not only do it once, but to do it every single day, to do it every single session, to do it every single, you know, not just in the pool, but in the gym, and to do it not just in the gym, but in your run session, and not just in your run session, but in your Pilates session and your yoga session and your circuit session and your abs and core session. And then to like add more things, more than what your teammates might be doing, more than what your squad mates might be doing. It's that willingness to go that extra mile, and, you know, to eat the right things, to make the choice to stay at home on a weekend rather than going out partying with your friends. Like, it's not easy. They're not the easy decisions to make. They're the kind of, like, for me at that time, I think they felt really easy because I wasn't interested in any of that. I had a focus, I had a desire, I had a drive, I had this intensity to achieve something. And I was able to do that through those little incremental steps. And, you know, the motivation has to be intrinsic. Like, nobody can be there with you 24/7 to tell you what to do all of the time. Yes, you know, obviously there's bulk part of that in your weeks where your coach is telling you what to do and how to do it. But ultimately, it's what you do when no one is watching that is going to get you across the line and get you to those goals that you're working towards.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have 2 older sisters and an older brother.
Oh, wow. So you got a few in the family. Were you uncommon, or was this kind of the way all of you were raised, or did they look at you and be like, where did she come from?
It's a good question. I think we're very different in terms of, so we're not like the Campbells where everyone's like an amazing athlete, or nothing like that. We're very different. So I think being the youngest of 4, and I was the youngest by quite a bit to my brother who's next. He's 4 years older, and then 5 years older, and then 7 years older. So in some ways, I kind of feel like at a time I was almost an only child in a weird way, sort of, especially between probably the ages of 10 and 15. But I just wanted to keep up with them. And so obviously being 4 and 5 and 7 years ahead of me, they're very much more physically progressed than I was, but I just wanted to keep up and do as much as I could and beat everyone from the very beginning. I had this real competitive instinct from a very, very, very young age. It's like an annoyingly competitive person from a super young age. And yeah, I don't know where I got it from, to be honest. We have a little bit of sport in our family, like a bit of tennis, a little bit of swimming here and there, but nothing major. But yeah, I think I was lucky in that I had that competitiveness, but then I found something that I loved a lot from a really young age, and that really just resonated with me and connected to where I wanted to go.
You've got an interesting career because there's a lot of relay championships on there, podiums. But the thing I think that separates you from a lot of other people with a resume like yours is that you won individual events as well at the Olympics, at the World Championships. You got silver medals, you got bronze medals, but you won gold medals. And I think that's a separating factor. I've had a lot of people on my podcast, and some of the top athletes in the world have had resumes like you in terms of being on some of the best relays in history. And you've certainly done that, but you had an individual success as well. And I think the thing for me that separates you from other people is a mental toughness. Do you recognize in yourself that you had a mental toughness?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think I mean, I don't think you're necessarily conscious of it at the time, but I think for me, I had it on some level an adaptability to racing. I loved racing, so I wanted to do it as much as possible, which I think fared well for me in terms of being a multi event athlete. That certainly was something that I think helped me get up every single day during an 8-day competition and do the best that I could, and a way to, manage energy and all of those sorts of things. But I think what it came down to is I just bloody loved racing, and I didn't want anything to kind of keep me in the way of, get in the way of that for me. And I think that for me, the races that I'm most disappointed about in my career are the ones that I let shit get in the way of my performance. And they're the hardest ones to kind of process still, because I know that I could have done better, but because of shit that was going on in my brain, I wasn't able to perform to the best of my ability. And I think that's the thing that gets me the hardest, because I feel like I was pretty adaptable. I feel like, when things were hard, I was able to sort of find another level. And, if stuff was going on in the background, whether, family or relationships or, missing home or whatever, I was really able to compartmentalize and focus on the task at hand. And that was something that I really loved being able to execute on.
Right, that compartmentalization is something that I've noticed in a lot of the top athletes that do end up getting on the top of the podium. They do that really well, of just separating at the time. I was there in Beijing watching Michael Phelps, win that historic 8, and you could just tell, like, he was locked into this event, and then as soon as it was done, boom, next. And all the pressure and everything else that's going on in your personal life. I mean, he was just locked in. And, Michael's an easy example, but, in a way you were doing the same thing at the same time, obviously, winning that gold in the 100 fly. But you did talk about the fact that the freestyle race was one of the worst races in history for you. What happened during that race?
You guessed which one I was talking about. Yes, the 100 freestyle in Beijing, I think.
Yeah, what happened?
Good question. I got in my way. I honestly, that's all I can kind of put it down to.
Was it before the fly?
No, it was after. So
really?
We got bronze in the 4x1 medley. 4x1 freestyle relay.
Right.
The following day, I won gold in the 100 butterfly, and then I had a day or two off, and then we had the 100 freestyle. And because I was trying to manage my energy, having multiple events and things like that, I had to try and go as fast as I could, making a good qualification for the final, but not expending all of my energy. That was something that I was very conscious of. And I just made a bad call I think possibly because it was a semi-final in the morning, or there's so many elements that were happening in Beijing as well, with morning finals versus evening finals. But I just made a bad call. I just didn't recognize that there was an athlete in lane 8. I didn't see her. She was going really fast. I thought I was doing enough to come second or third in my heat. My semi-final, and I ended up coming fourth, which is not where you want to be in the first semi-final, because that obviously leaves a very big door open for other athletes to qualify ahead of you. And I ended up qualifying 9th by 0.09 of a second, which obviously is not qualifying for the final. I came 9th. And the exact situation had transpired 4 years prior in Athens. I had qualified 9th by 0.09 of a second, and I didn't get an opportunity to swim in the final. And to do that for
mental lapse at that time,
I just think I thought I was doing enough, but I didn't have awareness over a girl in lane 8. That was I should have gone a bit faster.
You were swimming within yourself then. You could have swum faster if you went all out.
Oh, for sure. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was definitely swimming within myself. It wasn't a matter of, not having anything left. I just didn't execute the race good enough for that session, because I was trying to maintain energy. And so it happened 4 years later, and I just immediately spiraled. I immediately went, what the fuck are you doing? What have you done? Like, how can you be 4 years more experienced? You're world champion, you're multiple world record holder, and you don't get to swim in the final in the 100 freestyle. Like, what? How did you do this? And I was like that for probably 5 to 10 minutes, getting through the sort of media contingents, all through the media press sort of, I don't know what you call it, like line, basically. I kind of kept my head down. Yeah, and then I got to the Australian contingent of the media, and our athlete liaison officer, media liaison officer, came up to me and said, "You're in the final." And I thought he was being cruel. I was like, why would you make such a cruel joke? I came 9th. Like, I'm not in it. And it turned out that the Chinese athlete got disqualified for a false start, and I had gotten lane 8 into the final. And it's amazing what a short amount of time, how much that can impact on your attitude and perspective, and how you're able to process that. And I didn't do a good job of that. I wasn't able to kind of compartmentalize that moment, because I was so disappointed in myself in the execution of my race, and that was something I prided myself on. So I
you just hung on to those emotions and those feelings, did you?
Totally. And that's not something that I do. Like, that's not something that I want to do. I want to be able to just put a line in the sand and move on. And I just, in that moment, I think with so much on the line, with so much desire to win the gold medal in the 100 meters freestyle, it's something I'd wanted for so long. And I was so angry that I'd kind of almost completely fucked it up. But then on the flip side, I had this idea that I was going to be the next Kieran Perkins. I'm going to win from lane 8. I'm going to be this underdog, and it's going to be this amazing experience, and I'll be able to tell this story forever in the best way possible. And I wasn't able to let go of those weird thoughts. I stopped doing the processes. I stopped executing on those things that I was good at, and just allowed myself to kind of spiral in a really emotive way. And in the 100 freestyle the next day in the final, I swam probably the worst race that I've ever executed in my entire life. I went out so hard. I remember getting to the 35-meter mark and going, oh shit, I think my legs are gone. And for one, like if you're already thinking anything in a race, like if you remember what you think in a race, it's not a good sign. But to think that I'm hurting is a doubly bad sign. I got to the 50-meter mark and I pushed off the wall and I was just like, oh man, I have nothing. Like my legs are gone. And I remember getting to the 75-meter mark and going, well, I'm pretty sure I'm standing still. I'm pretty sure I've no longer have momentum forward. And I reckon the last 3 strokes of that race, it was just, I literally felt like I'd stopped. Like there was no momentum forward. And I think the hardest thing to know is that I was in the lead of that race until the touch on the wall. You know, Stephan touched me out by 0.04 of a second. And, you know, there's so much what ifs in a result like that, right? You know, it's not like you did the best race that you could, you put together the best performance that you could, and you came second. Like, amazing, right? That you can't be disappointed with that if it was the best thing that you could have done. But I literally did the worst race of my life and came second by 0.04 of a second. So there's so much. If I'd just gone out a little bit easier, if I'd just not been so stressed, if I'd just, you know, all of these what ifs that come up. So I think that for me is one of the hardest races to process. But having said that now, I mean, at the time it was devastating. But now I'm able to reflect on that and go, wow, like you had the worst race of your life and you came second at the Olympic Games. Like that's pretty damn good. And I can be really proud of that performance now.
Yeah, I think as competitors and athletes, and especially, you know, being part of the Australian team and being part of teams that were so successful, we always expected more. You know, it was gold or nothing really for all of us, you know. So like my 6th place at the Olympics, I'm like, I was shattered about it, you know, not shattered in the sense that like I was so close to the podium, like, man, I could have got there. But then you think to yourself, like, I'm 6th fastest swimmer in the world. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
At the Olympic Games, like,
yeah, like a silver medal in the 100 freestyle at the Olympics. I would have taken that any day of the week.
Yeah, totally. I think it takes time to get that perspective. You have to kind of be out of it for a little bit longer. But I don't know. I kind of wish I had that perspective at the time, because at the time it's devastating.
Yeah, sure. You ended up writing a book, Beneath the Surface, right? Where can people get that book?
Online is usually the best way. It's pretty readily available online. I know like in Amazon? Australia, Amazon, booktopia.com in Australia is a great place to find it. But yeah, I'm really proud of that, actually. Outside of swimming and obviously my children, it's probably the thing that I'm most proud of to date, because it's obviously a very open and honest look at my time as a swimmer, but certainly post swimming as well, and my experiences with depression and postnatal depression and those sort of transition moments that we have in our life. And I hope people resonate with it. Like, I hope people don't look at it and go, oh, she's an Olympic swimmer, I won't get anything out of that. There's so much more to that story that I think is really relatable, hopefully, to a lot of people.
When did the book come out?
It came out in 2019, October 2019. So I think I was 34 weeks pregnant with my 3rd girl when we were doing the sort of book launch. So it took about 2 years to do, but really proud of it.
Pretty hard to expose yourself like that. Who had the idea of wanting to do this in the first place? Was it you?
No, actually, I was kind of really not keen on an idea of doing a book, because I didn't want to do just a sporting memoir. I think swimming was who I was. It's certainly part of who I am, but it's not all of who I am. So I couldn't really get my head around doing just a sporting chat about my swimming. I was like, that doesn't seem that interesting to me. I wouldn't read it. So I really wanted it to be about more than that. And I'd been starting to be really open and honest with my experiences around mental illness and depression and postnatal depression, as I mentioned. And I wanted to, I just started doing more conversations around those things and how hard parenthood can be and things like that. And one of the editors from the publisher that I went with, she had heard me on a podcast actually randomly talking around the transition into parenthood, and she thought it would be interesting to do a book. And I'm just grateful that they were on board with the idea of doing a book around, obviously we have to talk about the swimming, but also life after swimming. And yeah, so I got approached, and I think I was at a point where I was ready to say yes. So
awesome. Well, I hope people watching this get on and read it, because look, we are more than just swimmers, but at the same time, it's very hard to transition out of that. And I think sharing your experiences is great too. And then, like we said earlier, becoming a mom and a parent is not something there's a handbook on. So at least to have somebody who has a little memoir in there and talks about it, it can certainly be helpful for a lot of different people. But that's pretty awesome. So what else did I want to talk about here? There's so much. I mean, God, I know I've kept you for a while, so I appreciate your time. But
no, I'm sorry I've messed you around with all of my technical difficulties.
No, it's been okay.
And my massage, which got in the way.
Where are the kids now?
They're at home, not by themselves, but yeah, we actually, one's at kindy, one's at school, and we also just hired a nanny actually, and she's just been a godsend.
Yeah, I did want to say this. You were the first woman to break 53, and you were the first woman to break 24 in the 50. What was that like to be kind of a barrier breaker?
It's one of the things that I love the most about swimming. I'm very conscious that I was in a very kind of privileged position to be able to do that, and to do that in that way was just awesome. So I was the first Australian woman to break 25 seconds, which was like, I think that's what got me the taste of it. The idea to break barriers and be the first to go into that second realm. I love that concept. I mean, just in general, breaking a world record, to have no one in the world ever go faster. I don't know. It's just cool. Like, I know that records are made to be broken. I know that, the main goal in swimming and, most sports is, like an Olympic gold medal or a world championship gold medal. But yeah, to be the fastest ever, I don't know, it's just cool. Like, it's a cool thing to be able to do. And yeah, I'm really proud of those performances. I'm really proud of the fact that I broke 53 seconds racing Michael Phelps at the Duel in the Pool in 2007. Like that, what an amazing experience that was. And, to finish like 4 or 5 seconds behind him, but still be the fastest female ever. Nobody realized that I'd broken 53 seconds and was an unofficial world record until I started losing my mind at the end of the race. But yeah, they're really cool accomplishments. I'm still bummed that I didn't get to break 51 seconds in the short course pool in the 100 freestyle.
It was like 51.0, wasn't it?
Yeah, 51.01. It was so close. That would have been an epic way kind of to finish my sort of short course swimming career, but not to be. But yeah, they're some of the moments that I'm most proud of, for sure.
Well, what's some advice you would have for somebody that, there's an elite group of athletes out there, and I'm sure they've got it figured out anyway, but in terms of advice of breaking a barrier like a world record, what's the advice you would give them? Did you do well by putting that in front of you and chasing a time, or did you not want to see that every day? Did you just want to go with kind of like, okay, if I do A, B, C, and D, then that'll lead to E?
Probably both. to be honest. I think you need that combination. I mean, the formula is the same, right? It's just working your ass off. Like, you just have to do the hard work. You have to do those 1%ers every single day, every single session, every single rep. They're the main things that are going to get you closer to those opportunities. And then when you're at that opportunity, you need to give yourself the best chance possible. So don't get in your own way. Do work on your mindset. Do work with sports psychologists. Do work on how to cope with pressure, and then practice racing, practice feeling under pressure. But for me, certainly, in terms of breaking barriers or breaking world records, like I remember in the lead up to the Athens Olympic trials, probably about 6 months out, I put down a time. It was my time goal. It was 53.6. I put down. I wrote it down. I put it on my wall. I looked at it every single day in the lead up to those trials, and it was a full second faster than my personal best time. So way beyond the realm of what I thought I was capable of, but that's what I was working towards. And it was 0.1 faster than the Inga de Brown world record at the time. So like had a big, hairy, audacious goal. It was a lofty goal that I was aiming for, and I had no idea how long it was going to take me, but that's what I wanted to work towards. So I obviously had an intention to get a world record. But yeah, in Athens, at the Olympic trials for Athens, I was able to, in the semi-final, take the pressure off and just see what my body was capable of. And they're the best races. Like, they're the most fun that you have when it comes to racing, when you take that pressure off and just see what you've trained your body to do. And yeah, ended up touching the wall with a 53.66, which was like I said, a full second PB, a world record time. It was so unexpected. But I think you need to have both. I think you need to have the goal and the intention, but you need to do the hard work.
You're such a resource and such a badass. Do the people, do the next generation of swimmers in Australia tap into that? Do they come to you for advice, or have you had a chance to talk to them in any way? I mean, come on, you're like right there.
Thank you. I want to get more involved in swimming again. I think I'm probably at a stage that I feel comfortable enough to be able to sort of talk about those things. I think Kate was still racing when I was racing, so I still felt like I had competitors that were still there that I didn't want to, I don't know, step on their toes or feel like I was thrusting advice on them. Because it's a hard thing. You did
exactly what every woman wants to do. You know, like, you dominated the world. You won the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like, and you did it over many years. You know, so like like, I could talk to you for hours and just ask you question, just pull more out of you. I mean, you give great answers, by the way. You're a great podcast guest. But yeah, I mean, I would just think that, you know, especially leading into Tokyo, it's like, here's a woman in our backyard who has done exactly what I'm trying to do, and I just want to go and talk to her. I mean, I just can't imagine why more people aren't doing that. So,
well, I'm in Australia at the moment. We have a program called the Gold Medal Ready program in the lead up to the Tokyo Olympics. So I've had the opportunity to work with a number of different sports, and the coaches of swimming, which has been really good. I love it because I feel like I'm kind of giving back, and I feel like I'm able to give someone a different perspective, because I think they see me and they go like, oh, she's just a normal human, but she was able to do these amazing things and things that they might be aiming towards. And for me, it fills my high performance cup, because it's a completely different world to, the real world compared to an elite sporting world. It's so different. And so I get a lot out of it as well. But I think I am ready to start doing a little bit more with swimming. I would love to, because it is still, I talk about swimming. It's my first love, right? Like, it's the thing that I fell in love with first in my life. And I don't think I'll ever stop loving it. I don't think I can ever be a coach because I'm too impatient. I'd be like, just fucking do the work. Stop
Yeah, that was me
being
sometimes.
yeah, yeah, I'd be like, just do it. I know what I'm talking about, but in that sort of way that you can kind of come in and have workshops and talk to the athletes, and I feel like I could make a difference in that way. So I'm hoping to do that a little bit more in the future.
In terms of high performance, I mean, there's very few people that end up breaking world records and winning Olympic gold medals. I mean, you are such a resource. They need to tap into you more. So get on it, Australian Swimming and whoever else. But listen, last question. You know, you were part of some great teams and had some great teammates. Who's your favorite teammate of all time?
Oh, I mean, other than you, obviously.
Yeah, it was a setup question. There you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, were you fishing for that one? Yeah, no, I mean, we had some great teams, right? Like we were super lucky. I think I would have to say
And you end up
I'm
meeting your
still
husband on the Australian team, didn't you?
yes, yeah, yeah. So I met my husband on my Australian junior team actually
Okay, there you
at the Oceania Championships. We met. Um, I think probably I would have to say. I mean, I still love Alice Mills. So Alice
go.
is a still very close friend of mine. So
Yeah,
I'd have to say she'd be right up there, even though we were competitors. I really enjoyed her company. Christian Sprenger, who was a squad mate of mine.
yeah,
I loved his company. But you know what? Like, I think everyone was really fun.
yeah. We had some
And
fun teams.
yeah, Liesl Jones. I mean, so many athletes that I just loved hanging out with. Melanie Schlanger. I mean, Melanie right now. Gosh, there's so many that I could just reel off
Yeah,
back in the day. So yeah, very grateful to still count them as friends,
yeah.
which has been, I think, made that transition into the real world easier to be able to connect to those guys and sort of, go back to the fondness of how fit we were and look at all the amazing things we did. But like, oh my God, how crazy is the real world? It's so hard.
Yeah, it is so hard. Definitely. Listen, I've really enjoyed this. I've loved it coming from the front seat of your car. This has been a lot of
Yes.
fun. I had some
Thanks, Hawke.
challenges,
Thank
but
you
it's
so
been
much
awesome.
for having me. It's
Yeah,
so awesome what you're doing, just putting this out there. Everyone's experiences are so interesting and different, but similar, and you can take so much and learn so much. So I hope a lot of athletes get in here and listen to what people
yeah,
have to say. So thank you.
absolutely. Libby, yeah, you're awesome. Good to see you again. And say hi to everyone that you run into back home. I miss everybody. I wish I could come down there and catch up with everybody. But good to
Soon,
see you.
hopefully. Soon everything opens up and you can come
Yeah,
on down.
exactly. I want to come back. So, all right, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Take care. All right, girl.
Awesome. Thanks, Hawke. I'll see you soon.
Bye.